All right, here we are.
All right. 5 minutes late, but we're here.
Yeah, 5 minutes late. I'm just trying to make sure the stream is going on my. There we are. Okay, on my other screen. Hey, listen,
What's
we're
up?
back in for the first class in office hour, second office hour, technically, I guess, of
Oh, because you did earlier, right?
2025.
Yeah, Mr. 82nd semester over
Yeah,
here.
yeah, 80. Well, technically, it's more than 82 semesters because I taught in the summer probably about half of those years.
Oh my gosh, you're over 100.
I'm over 100, man. I am definitely over 100. And I've taught classes at other places. So this is just Penn State. So yeah, I
That's
don't know.
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. But so it's 80,
Wow.
80. Let's just say 40. We're going on 41 years.
All right, we
Yeah,
need we need some champagne.
hey, listen,
No.
yeah, it's hard. I was telling Lori just before we came on just how I just came from a meeting with teaching other teaching faculty in my department, and we were just kind of talking about different things about teaching. We gather. There are groups of professors that gather at different times over the years. Just talk about the trials and tribulations, the good and bad, and just give each other teaching tips, right?
Hmm.
Of the profession. And man, it's just harder, more and more difficult for me to pull the energy up to speak about teaching. Yeah, just to talk about it really with, I don't know, with colleagues and stuff. I don't know, maybe just talk about it. I guess maybe I can just do it on my own. But
What is it about that makes it is it just like you've been through this? This is your 82nd semester, like you're always doing teaching tip meetings.
yeah, I think that kind of thing. It takes a lot of energy. I don't know. Um, as we age, right, there are things that we just give up and we don't have the energy for in the way that
Mm-hmm.
we used to. And I have the
Mm-hmm.
energy. And Lori was saying, well, you have other people would look at Social 19 and say, oh my God, I've taught that class for 33 years or whatever.
Right.
And they would look at me and say, well, how do you have the energy to go into that classroom and do that?
Yeah.
Um,
It it makes me just with the meetings, I know you kind of went back into class, but it makes me wonder like how you think your role has evolved in those meetings. Because like as you I'm sure like your presence changes as like you gain experience and like maybe your role changes and maybe you're mentoring who knows, but
I don't think so really
no.
because the way I teach is so much more like so vastly different than the way other people do. And it's not better, it's not worse, it's just very different. There's
Yeah.
more theater involved. Like I was
Hmm.
thinking about yesterday when we did that first case study, and I just think, kind of bringing students up and having no idea what's going to happen, and just
Yeah.
joking around with them and having them, the one student asks, like, oh man, has anyone ever been canceled? And so he brings that up, and then they go in that direction, and then here and there. And I think
Right.
that's so much more theater than what we consider to be teaching. So even to say that I'm a teacher is kind of, uh, is really is kind of odd. It doesn't make sense. I don't feel like a teacher in that way,
Hmm.
or a professor.
So because of the improvisational aspect,
Yeah,
it feels more theatrical because
yeah,
it's like improvisational
yeah, yeah.
rather than like the standard of teaching is more like there needs to be structure and like a linear, like this is where we start and this is how we end.
Yes, and I have information I'm going to make you aware of, or impart on you, or make you aware of, that you could do on your own. But most of us wouldn't, right? Like there are so many things that I've been trying to you I tried to learn, like I want to learn, right? Various, very, very simple things, that I don't want to look up. All I got to do is Google them. I just got to find time to look at the Google, and as George Bush called it one time, and go to the YouTube and do a couple things, and then read some things, and be like, oh God, that's what that is. Oh, I've always wondered, and
You're sounding 82 the way you call it, the YouTube, the Google.
The Google. George, you wouldn't know this because you were probably, I don't even know if you were born at that. You were really young. George just called it the Google one time. I just thought that was,
Oh my gosh, this sounds ancient. The Google.
yeah, well, George Bush is also the guy who was at a supermarket, and they were putting items through a scanner, and he was like, "Whoa, that's really amazing! When did you get that?" It was 15-year-old technology at that point. But here's a guy, right, who's going to the supermarket and doing that. I mean, really, at a certain level, right, at a certain point in life, you're just not doing that. It's not something that you would do. So there are a lot of basic things that are basic for all of us, pumping our own gas or whatever, unless you live in New Jersey. But
Who are you? When you say you're just not doing that, like, I'm confused a little.
Well,
like age, like people aren't doing.
Like, no. You're busy doing other things, right? You're not going out doing your own grocery shopping. And that's one thing that Jimmy Carter, who just died, people were really kind of struck by him. Now, this, mind you, this is in the late 70s, but there were so many things that he did, like, that other presidents didn't do. Like his daughter Amy went to a public school, and it was a friend's school. I think it was a Quaker school or something, but nonetheless, it was a public school. That no president hadn't done that in 100 years, kind of thing, right?
Wow.
And people would go places and kind of wander off, kind of thing. But you just like, when's the last time Donald Trump pumped his own gas? Right. I mean, when's the last time? Has he ever pumped his own gas?
He's worked at McDonald's first before he's pumped his.
Yeah, like, and that's not a criticism, right? It's just that it's a thing. Like, you spend time. You don't do that. I'm from a different class, so even though now I'm a professor, I'm still doing all that stuff. I know how to swing a hammer. I know which end of a hammer to grab onto and how to swing it. So it's
no, you're handy. Pretty handy.
All right, listen, man. So first off, can you be able to track some of the questions in the
chat? Yep.
But you had a couple of questions from yesterday's class, I think.
Yep. Yeah. Well, there's a comment. JC said, "I would say your teaching style is more akin to a classical college, whereas you approach problems through the Socratic method and teach students to think critically." Which sounds right.
Yeah. I would say that. Although, again, it's easy to, in the heat of the moment, there's, almost 800 people watching, and the cameras are going and the lights are on. It's not easy to think really super clearly about the best way to do that. Sometimes I go off, but whatever. It is what it is. All right.
And yep. I don't know if I'll understand this, but some people were in the chat were saying, "Are we experiencing a boomer moment right now?" That was about 2 minutes ago.
Maybe. Maybe, but also, I mean, yeah, I'm a boomer, man. I mean, I am a boomer, I suppose, but at the same time, I'm also, yeah. Well, first off, I am, man. I mean, there are things, I'm also really try to keep up with technology, and I do keep up with technology. Like, I use my phone in way more complicated ways than the vast majority of my students. Like, I know what this thing can do, and I use it that way. And most students are mostly limited to a certain number of apps. I mean, there are all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah. Now I'm kind of curious. I'm like, how do you use it? Like,
How do
how are
I?
you using it in comparison to students? I'm like,
I mean, I'm just using way more apps. Yeah, way
mm-hmm,
more apps. Yeah,
mm-hmm,
yeah. Well, okay, let's go to C. Horace. Who said, "Why do I think that Trump has never done physical labor?" Uh, I don't know that, right? And I don't know that, but but the question is, when's the last time? My question was, when's the last time he pumped gas? Okay, and this kind of thing. It's not a criticism. When's the last time? So when George Bush, anybody, some of these, at some point Barack Obama is no longer was no longer making his own meals, or pumping gas or doing all sorts of stuff. So everybody
mm-hmm,
is the same. Like you don't have time for it, right? Like and if you and and that's understandable, right? It breaks the mind up too much. There's some things that I have to force myself to let go of that I can do really, really easily, like clean my house. But at some point in time, Lori and I said, "Look, man, she's half Polish, so she loves to clean, and I'm mostly a Virgo, and so I enjoy cleaning. But at some
mm-hmm.
point, we look at each other and we're like, we can't take time to do this. Like we really
Right.
can't. There are other things we have to do. So
Mm-hmm.
we gave that up like maybe 12 or 15 years ago, that we have someone come in once a week and clean, and we're quite capable of cleaning. And there's still things I clean. I clean the toilet. I mean, there's stuff that, but so that's I think, going back to my comment about to see Horace. That's my comment about kind of Trump or anybody have a position like that. You just don't. You don't have a.
Like you kind of need to.
Yeah,
I mean, not they need to, but like you said, it clears up space in order
yeah,
to
yeah. You have
to.
to, yeah, it clears up space, and you got to force yourself. And like, I want to do certain things on my own, but I realize, look, if I do these things, I don't have time to take care of the other things that I really need to do. Hey,
That's so
Grandpa,
interesting.
I don't know. The first one born in a hospital, man, it's somebody in probably the 20th century, right? It's got to be a fairly recent president. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's actually really, yeah, yeah, probably someone fairly before Obama for sure. Yeah, could maybe
Man.
Nixon. No, Nixon. Yeah, Nixon was born in California, right? So maybe Nixon. Reagan was born out in the Midwest, somewhere in Nebraska or somewhere. So he probably was not born in a hospital. We'd be less likely, right? That's really cool. Um, uh,
I would argue that never having. I would argue
yeah,
that never.
and
Oh, what's
see,
up?
going back to C. Horace, I wouldn't argue that not having done manual labor or physical labor is a character flaw. I wouldn't say that, but I would say that uh, that it seems to me. I mean, I can't make a blanket statement like that, but I would guess though that people who have never done physical labor um, are are more like are less likely to have a complex empathic understanding toward other people who do for their entire lives. It's what I would say. It doesn't mean across the board, but I would say probably you're not going to fully understand what that means. Like beating your body up, right? Like what it means to go, you know, do manual labor, calling stuff around and moving your body and just swinging things and banging things 5 days a week. What that does to a body, and like really, when you see people who've done that their whole lives and they talk about it, and they're tired and they're worn out, and you think, oh my God, this person, if you haven't done that for a year of your life or even a month or a summer, you just don't understand. You're not going to understand what that means
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
same way. That means you're less likely to be able to understand people. And
or like the privilege that you might have if maybe maybe
maybe privileged, but I wouldn't even go to the privileged thing. I'm just going
yeah.
for to be,
Mm,
like what that means, right? It's like
right.
going to a restaurant and knowing what it is be a working in a restaurant and be on your feet for 8 hours or 10 hours and still have a smile on your face and still greet everybody with respect and all of that, like what that takes, for me, sometimes, if it's late and I know someone's been on a shift for a long time and they're a waiter or waitress and they're kind of snappy with me a little bit, I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
can give them the benefit of the doubt because I've done that. And I know, like, you know, right? You've done a lot of
I
manual labor.
I was about to bring it up. I was like, man, I could have gotten away with being snappy that one time I served you.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it's so
yeah.
interesting too because like for me, I thrive in situations like that. The more I'm around people, the more I start to get excited,
Hmm.
and I just feed off the energy. But like, yeah, of course, there's times where you're just tired and you're like, yeah. So I hear you. I hear you. Then I was also thinking like, oh man, sometimes it's like a buildup of energy. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
can
for
be
sure.
so tiring. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's really a very, I don't know. It's a thing, right? So anyway, that would be my take on that. That I feel like there's great if you to understand human beings, there's great value. Here's one, right? Understand wealthy people, right? A lot of people really do not understand people who have a lot of wealth and people who were born into wealth and have a lot of wealth, right? I mean, not just a little bit, but really a lot. And if you haven't sat down and just had, random, open, thoughtful conversations about life and so on, well, you can't really even understand what it is to be like that. If you never talked to even a single person, right? If you just talk to one person, that's one thing. But so Lori and I have had the opportunity to speak with a number of people who are, valued in the billions,
Hmm.
and it, changes. We can never ever make any statements about people of that level of means without thinking of the people who we know, we met, and and knowing the complexities of that and what it means to, either been born into it, that's one thing, and then to earn it on one's own, that's another thing.
Hmm.
And it's like, so people talk about, oh, the billionaires. It's like, nah, it's not. It's yeah. As soon as you meet anybody, this is my thing all the time, right? This is why I talk about why I do the class in the way that I do, right? I want you to meet Christians and Muslims and Jews, and not just Jews, but Israeli Jews, and then Jews from here and Jews from there, and like understand all of that. But the more you get that, the more people you meet, the more things get very, very complex. Yeah.
Hmm. Huh. Yeah, that's so interesting when it feels like class. I think, I'm just speaking off my amateur perspective, but like it feels like class is like an echo chamber, and you're like, oh, we need people to communicate with themselves. Like it's like people that you're saying people that don't understand rich people are like rich people that aren't understanding like the server or the and it's like how do we get that understanding to happen when it's like almost like some or I assume some families are like, oh, you stay with this group,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
to maintain and sustain like the like your status quo, I guess.
Mhm, mhm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, oh man, it's just like a maybe an echo chamber. Uh,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I know that I'm certainly been lucky enough to have enough conversations with enough people to know that
yeah.
there are very few things that I can say about a group of people that that I have to that I don't have to stop and say, wait, hang on a second, is that like snarky things, that kind of thing. By the way, I have this. Speaking of echo chamber, I have some kind of echo in my ears, and I don't know where it is. And I want to ask Jeff, if you're online, can you just pop in the private chat? Is the stream fine? Or ask anybody, is the audio on the stream fine? Because I've got this thing going on. I don't know where it's coming from. Hey, listen, do you have any? You had a couple questions from class yesterday, I think.
Yeah. So I have a lot of questions from the introduction to Sam. So, it's a lot of you questions.
Okay, ask me a couple of them, and then
Yeah. Okay. We'll see how you take it. What's your social security number?
Ends in 1, 2, 3, 4. How about that?
So we have, for those that maybe if you didn't see the stream yesterday, Sam was showing a picture of himself, from 1991, with the long hair. Funny story, actually. Each year, Sam, I'm not sure if he still does it, but he used to do the Haiti project, and students would find ways to like make money and like sell merch or things, and then for Haiti, to donate. And one of the things that I bought during that time when I was in the class was a sticker of Sam and his long hair.
Yeah.
And I put that over top of my Apple symbol on my MacBook. And so instead of like when you see your MacBook, it wasn't an apple. I just saw Sam's face with his long hair. I still have it on there. So just a fun story. But the question is, the guy with the long hair in 1991, what wasn't he prepared for when he began this teaching journey?
Man, that's a really, really good question. How was I not prepared for? I wasn't prepared intellectually to take on multiple sides of arguments. Yeah, I wasn't prepared intellectually for that. Like, I just wasn't smart enough. I didn't know enough. I didn't have enough experience. I just hadn't been digging in long enough. Yeah, I wasn't prepared. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I wasn't prepared to. I just, not just to take multiple sides of arguments. I just wasn't smart enough. I just wasn't thoughtful enough. I didn't, like it just takes time. Nobody has that when they're in their 30s, 20s, or 30s. You just can't. You just don't know. You don't have enough. You don't have enough experience.
So I mean, you still did it, which is, like you're saying that you weren't smart enough. You still did. So what, like, how are you compensating, or not?
I was compensating by providing information. Yeah. Yep. I was compensating by coming up with slides. First, I used to have, we used to have these overheads. This is going back a long way, man. And I did these transparencies, and I'd put a transparency up with information. And I mean, this is crazy to think that we actually did this. And I would write stuff on the board. They're not in front of 800 students. I mean, I didn't teach classes that large, but that's what you do. You hide behind information, and because it's too much. It's like to add to ad lib stuff, or what did you call it earlier? To just get up and not wing it, but what's the word? I'm in the beginning of a semester.
Improv.
Yeah, the improv stuff. When I was doing comedy when I was young, in my early 20s, stand up, right? The majority of my jokes, people have a routine, and they, you watch these comedians, even when if they're not doing improv, and if it looks like they're just standing there talking, they've got they've got jokes all lined up, man. It's one after another, especially when they're doing a short set, right? And so it's kind of like that. When I did comedy, it was very little improv because I couldn't work with. I didn't have enough experience. So,
Right.
So I would just provide information to people.
Because you got to have a set. You got to write the set.
Yep. And I'd go in and have my notes, and I'd know, like, okay, here it is. And even if I was going to just talk about what's on a slide, I still had enough information on the slide that I could just use that and talk about it. And students would just write things down. That's what they did in class. They had their notebooks. They go, say, get your notebooks out, get your pen, and they would just write stuff down, which is what they do in a lot of classes, right? Well, most classes probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there was a version of Sam that was like teaching in that formal way, where it's like lecturer, student, you write the notes down, you take a test after you write the note, you study the notes.
Yeah, I would study them, and then you go study the notes, so you take that. Majid. No, there is no footage of that, unfortunately. At one point in time, I had some audio. I used to record my sets because then I would go listen to the sets. But once in a man, I'm always on the edge of just taking the leash off in class and just doing comedy. But I swear, every time I do, I get in trouble. People complain. Just like yesterday, somebody put in the chat the thing I said about the kid who was from Du Bois, and I'm like, well, of course you're racist. You're from Du Bois or whatever it was. I don't know what I said. And they go, you can't say that. It's like, come on, man. He laughed. I laughed. He knows what it is. Like, we're just playing. Like, you can't laugh. There's nothing, man. There's nothing. I was telling a friend of mine that I'm finding people who identify as conservatives are becoming as sensitive as the snowflake liberals that they critique, right? You got all the left, the snowflakes, right? You can't say anything that might be deemed offensive in any way because they melt, right? It's the kind of thing. Any little bit of heat, they melt. And so people get critiqued for that, right? But I'm seeing the same thing from the other side, from people who are more conservative. I'm like, come on, relax here a little bit. Fun. Yeah, I see it both ways. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, because a lot of the narratives that I heard is that it's everyone, like, I feel like the strong narrative is that it's flipped now, but you're saying it's not really flipped. It's actually, both sides have a sense of, like, the snowflake.
Yeah, this is the thing. I don't think you almost can't get rid of it at some level, right? Yeah, I think this is part of it, right? Anyway, hey, Jason Perkins, as a subject, do you explore racial blindness and how that plays into our racist? Yeah, definitely, and we have, but that's actually would be a really good. I have talked about that a fair amount, but that would be good. Hang on, I'm going to write that down. By the way, in my notes,
I can write it down for you too, if you don't.
Racial blindness. Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? Like what we do. There are many dimensions of racial blindness, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask what you mean by racial blindness. Yeah.
Okay, well, Jason, you could say a little more about that, but there are a couple of dimensions of it. One is, there's a big movement in the late 90s. There was this guy out in California. I forget what his name is. But he was trying to really pushing for the state of California. God, someone remembered his name. He was really, really moved this forward in a very, very cool way. He was a pretty thoughtful conservative black guy out in California. And I say black guy because it's important, because what he was trying to do is get people to stop using racial signifiers in all official communication within the state of California. So
an signifier would be like black, white.
Yeah, or
gender.
I don't remember. He didn't push on gender very hard, but he pushed on race, saying like, look, what we need is race blindness. So it's like if you apply for a job or whatever you do, scholarships, jobs, anything. There's no need to know your race. Let's just treat everyone equally. And if we did that, we would break through a lot of the discrimination, because so much discrimination emerges out of knowing people's race, whether you're you know, wherever you are on the political spectrum. It just doesn't matter. If you just couldn't do that, it didn't have that, then it would be very different. It's kind of like when I was watching these auditions for one of the symphony orchestras. I forget which one it was, and people auditioned behind a screen. They had the people that were selecting the next, like, these were oboe players for the orchestra. They brought in about 5 people or something, and all 5 of them came in and they sat behind a screen one by one and they played, and no one had any idea how old they were, what their gender, race, anything was. They didn't know. And that's like, man, holy smokes. We don't know what your nationality is. We know nothing about you. All we hear is you playing oboe. And that's what this guy in California was arguing that we really need to do. And he was the first person to really push that forward in a big way. And I remember struggling with that, right? Because my idea was, well, you gotta, at the time was, what you need, we're never going to be able to address inequality if we don't see the places where people are getting discriminated against because of their race, right? And mostly that's happening to, people of color, or getting discriminated against because of their class. And that's happening to poor people, white people, black and brown people, doesn't really matter, right? So it's important to understand race, and it's important to understand class.
So that's the argument against like saying we need racial blindness, because if there's racial blindness, then you don't get to see into like the disparate, if I'm using that word correctly, communities. Disparities,
and so all of that. But his argument was, no, you will. In the end, if you just given enough time, then everything will even itself out. And at first I really struggled with that, but then I've come to see over the years, the value in it, right? People say anytime you have any kind of affirmative action, bro, like, you're half black, you're half white, anything that you achieve, if affirmative action in place, people are going to wonder, wait, did you get that? Are you the qualified person, or is that because you're half black that you made that achievement, right? Did somebody else give you a little push? Maybe half of a push because you're only half black,
right? Or like half of a half.
Half of like yeah. So then that becomes like, so that's an argument, it's like, and he was saying this is a problem. People of minority status don't need that. They don't want that in the end. Like, it's a really bad thing to do. So just put everybody on some kind of playing field and let the system and the market and organizations, let's just like work it out, So
is another drawback of that is you kind of like, there's, maybe more ignorance of culture. Would that be, if like there's racial blindness, would that lead to like cultural blindness?
It's like saying, hey, it would ultimately, well, that's another side of assimilation, right? So his argument was people are separating themselves in their cultural groups. And so, you got all not just the Hispanics are all over here. Mind you, this is California, right? But it's, you have your Mexicans and your Puerto Ricans and your Dominicans and Guatemalans and Hondurans and so on and so forth. Everybody's separated out. So and so some people would say, well, that's a really good, like me would be like, oh, that's a cool thing. Because like I can be in little Guatemala City and I don't have to go to Guatemala. I can just go out to LA and go to these, or in Queens, New York, and go to these like 3-block neighborhoods. It's like 3 square blocks or whatever. And I'm in little Central America, man. Like, this is pretty cool. Like, I like that. Now, somebody else would be like, we don't like that, but I like it. So
Right.
I'm like, no, hang on to your culture, man. Bring it up here. Be right there. I want to walk into your neighborhood. I want to feel like, like the Greek neighborhood in Queens. You feel like, shit, I'm in Athens. Like this is really. But his take was, but that's holding people back. And so, anyway,
Oh,
that's
what was holding people back?
the fact that they're hanging on to their culture. It's like you really need to assimilate into culture. And of course it's true at some level, right? For many people. So, and Morgan Freeman, you sort of he's like this, just stop talking about this stuff, man. Just get on with life. Talk about it when you want to talk about it, but don't make it the thing you lead with.
Like race
Yeah,
or
whatever it
or
is, race and yeah.
class?
Yeah. Yeah, and Carlin's really good on race stuff. But see, listen, but you understand, like, I can take any of these arguments and run with them and see the value in every single one. Like I see the value in it, and I see
Right.
the what it misses, right? Not perfectly, because I'm not a particularly good thinker, right? I mean, I'm not super clear in my thinking, um, but back 25 years, the long-haired Sam that you saw in that photo 25
Yeah.
years ago, 30 years ago, I
Mhm.
wasn't as smooth in my thinking. Yeah. Yeah. So
Mm.
that
What?
was, yeah,
Not as smooth. So it just
skillful, not as skillful. How about that?
got it. Or okay, yeah, like tactile too, or like if that's the right word. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Jason says Little Saigon and Sacramento. Yeah. I mean, this is like it's so cool to have that. And, we're going to do a class on this actually shortly, coming up soon, about we're going to do this class, and I'm going to get students who are really part of these affinity groups. And by the way, the Muse, I'm going to respond to you in a couple seconds here. Uh, who are part of these affinity groups. Were you part of any affinity groups when you were
can you define affinity group?
Yeah, like something that really connects with um, your who you are, your character, your identity, like your identity, right? So
Hmm.
like, so these groups like the Black Caucus or the Latino Caucus, or the Hillel is a Jewish student organization, or you have the LGBT Center, and these kind
Yeah. Well, when I was a student, I had a really strong yearning to be a part of the PRCC.
of, yeah,
Um,
Toll Roads and
because
Cultural Center, yeah,
yeah, because my dad, he didn't really get to experience or grow up with the black side of his family.
uh-huh,
He was kind of like torn from that when he was younger.
yep,
So I never, because of that, it affected me. I wasn't able to grow up with that. Maybe I've been to two or three family reunions.
yeah,
Been to a Baptist church once, which was like a whole experience when I was like 11
the
years old.
whole like 4 hour experience, I'm sure.
Yeah. Amazing music too, crazy vocals. I was like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh. Um, so but so I always had that like desire to be a
yeah.
part of that. But I
That
was always nervous
that
to
part
go
of
in.
you, that part of you, yeah, it's part
Yeah.
of your DNA, like who you are, culture. Okay, but you were nervous because you weren't black enough.
Yeah, because I'm like I'm to the world like I'm definitely white passing, like it was
Yeah.
some black people would say, I can see it, which I was
No,
so
hang on, not white
surprised.
passing. Well, okay, it's white
Or
passing, but you're also just
or
white.
white, just white.
Yeah,
Yes,
white.
just white.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
white. And so being white, I didn't feel like I could go there.
yeah.
Even though it was in my DNA.
Yep.
So
And okay,
yeah.
and so this is the kind of thing for me. So we're gonna have a conversation in class about this kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
And but okay, so it's not a big part of your identity, right? But it's a part of your identity that
Right.
you. It sounds like you didn't really struggle with it, but it was there, sitting on your shoulder, right? This little piece of you.
I think what helped me is growing up, I was always so attracted to um, like being friends with. I just wanted to be friends with people of like different cultures,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know? And so like I would always like in college or in high school, I was always friends with those that um, were kind of going upstream, which you say in your
Yeah.
uh, and or like going upstream, like I don't know, like when I was in high school, I was like with this different friend group that
Yeah.
wasn't. But anyway, yeah, I just
But listen, okay, but part of that is your identity, just in terms of your DNA and your family and
mhm,
so on. But part of that is your personality.
right,
Like you and I were after the stream last month or whenever it was, we were talking about you driving an Uber and the things that you've
right,
done, right? Like that was that
yeah.
one story that you told about the guy.
The the
But
homeless guy,
yeah, one of the many stories, right?
yeah.
But that's
hmm
this is such a huge thing. Tell that story really fast if you can, like kind of not too fast, but like
Okay. I think are you talking about the one where there was this I was going to see my friend perform in Lowell, Massachusetts, which is like the outskirts of Boston, you know. So it's like 45 minutes out of Boston, and I was parallel parking in Lowell. This homeless man knocks on my door and he asks me for some money, and I ask him, I'm like, do you know where the ATM is at? And he's like, yeah, it's like up a few blocks. So, and it's like, I think maybe like November, December. So it's like starting to get pretty cold outside, and it was like 7 p.m. And so we're walking a few blocks,
to go,
and then
he walked you to the ATM.
yeah, walked me to the ATM, and when I got there, it was so funny because there was this woman there, and it was the type of ATM where you have to like swipe to open and
Yeah.
like go through it, the little door. So I kind of like snuck my way in there because I was afraid I wasn't gonna be able to open it. And so I tried to make small talk with this woman so she didn't think I was like, like trying to creep her out, talking to her. I'm like, hey, I'm helping this man out, da 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 da. This homeless man, he doesn't have much. She ended up having a blanket for him in the van,
Yeah.
so she got him a blanket. And
Yeah.
then once we got the money from the ATM, I'm like, hey man, like here's money for like he's wanted alcohol. I'm like, here's money for alcohol, but I really want to get you food. And he was like, oh, like I just want the alcohol. I'm like, you can have just the alcohol if you want, but I'm saying you can have the alcohol and the food, you know? And he's like, he thought about it for a second, and he's like, you know what? That is the better deal. And so he's like, all right, like I'll go to the sub shop. I asked him what he wanted from the sub shop, and then he walked to go
Dude,
get
you're taking this guy's order. You know what I mean? It says, but you gotta tip me, man. Make sure you tip me.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, give me something from the
20% of my own money.
right, yeah. Like, come on, give me $1 back or something like that. And so I got the sub, and then I was like, I was waiting for him to come back from the alcohol store, and I'm like waiting, 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 and then I'm like, you know what? To the pizza guys or the sub guys, I'm like, hey, there's a homeless man here that he's going to the alcohol shop, but I bought him this sub. Can you
Yeah.
hold this for him until he comes, and then he'll grab it. And then as I'm about to leave, right, as I'm walking out the door, like ready to depart, I see in the distance, like he's hobbling towards me, and I'm like, oh, and then he comes up to me, he's like, man, you're patient, you waited. And then and then he had his handle, gave him his sub, and then we like walked to our intersection, and then we parted ways, and it
Dude,
was just
that's cool, man. Okay, so you did that because A, you like people. B,
yeah,
you're curious about people. C, you're not afraid of people, right?
right, yep.
And you're not afraid of experiences. And D and E, you're just like, I'm just gonna drink alcohol. So here you go, man. Hey, here's food, alcohol, but I'm gonna push you for some food. But I mean, like that's
It's
cool. I mean, this is the thing, right? Like it is what it is, right? But yeah. You
yeah.
were also telling all those stories about giving like all the women who are working as
Oh,
prostitutes and stuff.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that's another one.
Yeah.
The dude that I freestyled with when he was fresh out of prison, like after a week, we freestyled to his destination, and
Yeah.
we just the prostitute one that was profound, and she even called me back and said thank you, like a
Yeah.
week later, just for listening to her, and yeah, those are I'm not trying to like have a moment here, but like yeah, like honestly, so genuinely, those feel like such special moments, like the
Mm.
most meaningful moments that
Mm.
are like, mm,
Do you meet
yeah.
people?
It reminds me like how you helped when just the story that you gave the other day, when you were helping with baby food and
Mm.
in South America, or you were in
Yeah.
Colombia,
Yeah.
like that experience is incredible. Like how can you,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
It
know?
becomes like I don't know, when you open to the world, and it's not, it's that the guy who's homeless played a role in his homelessness, man. He's not 100% victim of anybody, right? And maybe he's got
Yeah.
an alcoholic gene, and that really he just was. I met lots of people in my life. They took the first sip of alcohol, whatever age they were, 14, 15, 16, 20. They took that first sip, and that just got in them, man. It changed their DNA, and they couldn't give it up, kind of stuff like
Wow.
that, right? So,
Wow.
as Elijah, this guy, hey, dude, you're responsible for this situation you're in, man. So you're knocking on
Yeah.
my window like, pop, 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 pop. Hey, you got any money? And and that he's responsible. You're not like some bleeding heart liberal guy. You got it. That's
Right,
good.
like you're the victim of all this.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
yeah.
system, man. It's more.
Yeah,
It's like, well, whatever. Let's have an experience. Like it's okay. You meet people.
yeah. And what's your response to people when, because to me, I guess I always felt bad. Like I just always felt like there wasn't enough compassion. It just always felt like there, like I get it. Like they did it. Like there's many stories where like they did it to themselves, and
Sure.
like there's a lot of people that have the mindset like you did this to yourself. Like I need to protect myself,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know. And like I see that too, but man, sometimes that hurts. It's like
Well, for me, I have a similar thing. Sometimes it just hurts, right? It's kind of like all the fires out in LA. It's like, well, listen, man, um, we know certain areas or buying a house on the shore in Florida or on the East Coast. It's like there are hurricanes, y'all. You get this, right? And this happens. So you can buy your house, but understand that when it gets flooded out, because eventually it will from a hurricane. You got to remember back that you were told this, you knew this, and you bought the house anyway. Like, okay, I got it. Same in LA. You could say the same thing about a lot of those houses in the fires, right? Or
like you chose
somebody, it's
this.
like Kim Kardashian lost her $80 million house. It's like,
Really?
and you can be, well, yeah, well, she has like 3 or 4 other houses, I'm sure. So
Right.
why should I care? It's like, no, 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 hang on. It's a human being with a house, and the house is resources. And so it just feels, for me, I'd rather go through life with a certain degree of compassion and understanding. But also, I put walls up, man. Like, you didn't give that guy, you gave him a small amount of money, relatively
Yeah.
speaking. You didn't go to the next person and the next person and the next person. No, that was it. You're this, like, I'll do this for you, and
Yeah.
that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I lost my train of thought for a second. But yeah, yeah, just even though it's Kim Kardashian, like the othering, just that's what I was thinking, just the othering of just people, like the
It's the othering. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
just
Hey, by
uh
the way, Eric, I just saw your question. Is there some reason the chat has nothing to do with my discussion with Elijah? Yeah, because I think what Elijah and I are saying right now is actually pretty deep about how much do you how do we not other people, right? Like how does it help us? How does it help me to see homeless people? Because it does, right? To see homeless people and just be annoyed at them. Like, dude, how the fuck, what happened, man? Why are you in this? Damn it. First off, it is I don't like stepping over people. Like I'd rather, I go to a park in DC or in LA when I was in downtown LA and or New York. It's like too many homeless people. It just feels, first off, I feel some kind of threat at some level. Naturally, there's some kind of threat.
Yeah.
And secondly, it makes, I feel, it's like in the woods, when I walk in the woods and there's a piece of trash, and the trash immediately, I'm drawn to it. I see it and I immediately feel disappointed and kind of annoyed. Why? Why not look at all the rest of it? Why does that do something to me? Well, that's kind of how it is with maybe people who are homeless and who remind me that that could be me, first off, and C, it's not easy. Living is not easy.
Yeah.
It's some people have a really difficult time with it.
Difficult time with like
Just living, man. As I am aging, right? I'm in my mid 60s, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a breeze for me, man. I got this life thing down. I got it. Like I got it. I figured it out. I spent 40, years just be creating a self that is as soulful and thoughtful and reflective as I could ever imagine anyone doing for me, right? And I married someone who was better than me and smarter than me in every way, who's going to help me. And and yet, man, here I am in my mid 60s and I'm just like, got these moments where I'm like, shit. Oh, and I just feel these waves of just something just pass through. I just feel the bottom drop out of my soul now and then. And like, oh, it's not easy, man. It's not easy aging. Yeah. It's not easy living. It's not, God. Yeah. Grandpa's place. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Choice, maybe not choice, but decisions that they made for sometimes choice. Okay, how about for Grandpa? There's choice, meaning people are just like, yeah, I don't want to be part of this anymore. And they're oftentimes mentally ill anyway. And then there's people that just make really bad decisions. It's like, dude, I've had people, how many people have told you to go to AA? How many times have people told you to go to AA? How many second, third, fourth, fifth chances of people giving you to go to AA and deal with this alcoholism you're dealing with? Like, come on, man. Like, come on. And then you got but I don't know. Alcohol's a hell of a drug, man.
Man, it's so crazy when you think about, like, there's so many places to, like, place the blame.
Yeah.
Like, it's so wild.
Yep. And you can't place it on any one of them ever. Yeah.
It has to be like this dispersed or no blame at all. I don't know.
Maybe
or accountability.
Yeah.
Cause.
Not blame, cause. How about that? That sounds a little easier. What really sort of pulled it together.
Right.
And but it's rare that I talk to someone who's in a really bad situation and it's never happens that either A, they had no role in it, or B, they didn't encounter something that just really jacked them up in some way. Mm-hmm. Really hurt them psychologically and sociologically and spiritually. Yeah. And if we all know that. Yeah. Self-medication. That goes to that, what Jason just said. That's like self-medication. Like it's not easy, man, waking up every day. And that's why, people who do it, they just get up every day and they do everything they need to do. And they go to work and they they come home from work and they take care of their kids. They do what they have to do. They play with their kids. They're good with the kids. With their spouse. I mean, oh my God, they maintain a pretty even temper. Like, God, those are the heroes in this world. Those are the heroes. And, huh.
And who are the heroes again? The ones that are
The ones that just do it every single day, man.
just
Every
resilient.
day. You just keep doing it. You wake up, you go to work, you do the best you can. You come home, you take care of things you need to take care of. You don't gamble away things that you shouldn't be gambling away. Just all this stuff. You just are doing it on a regular basis.
It makes me want to ask the question, like, as a sociologist, like, do you ever think about resilience? Like,
All the time. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, just because I remember, I think we had this conversation at some point, I think last semester, just like thinking it like everyone's expected to kind of like be resilient.
Well, the problem, and see, this is what the conservative movement, especially who are critiquing education, but critiquing a lot of things like DEI stuff. A lot of the conservative movement, they're really, if you listen to people talk and their criticisms of what would be kind of liberal social things, it's that we're training people or teaching to people to be less resilient, to be able to say, it's not my fault, right? This is not me. Like it's like this happened to me, and therefore, not like I was part of this happening to me, or I shared, or it happened, and here's how I responded to it in a positive way. The idea is that we're too often stopping at that this happened to me and therefore this is how I am. And what people, and this is a really important message from conservatives that are really bringing into this national conversation in so many ways. Like in ways, like we've sort of leaned over here from people who are, like the sociologists, because we tend to pick out the social problems and we look at this large group causality from a group level, and we sort of look at, okay, what are the causal factors and forces of the social problems that we see, whether it's addiction or homelessness or abuse or crime or poverty or whatever it is, right? And so by doing that, by picking out the causal variables, we also forget, because that's just what we focus on, right? Because that's just what you do. You're looking at these big data sets and causing you forget to say, wait, hang on. I got to go back and say, however, each individual has a responsibility is going to respond to those things one way or the other. And you can either respond to it by being a victim, or you can respond to it by overcoming or doing whatever you can do to overcome this thing that has affronted you, right? And this is resilience. So we're not teaching people to be really resilient. I see it with students, man. I really see it with students coming out of
like this enabling. Like it seems like there's two. It's either like what is the conservative message? Is it like you just need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps?
Well, it's not just that. It's not that we're not going to give you any help. I mean, some people, they say that. People will make that kind of statement. You just have to do it by yourself. But the truth is, we live in sociological groups. And so every even mildly thoughtful person I know who labels themselves conservative, as I do, right? I mean, there's a big part of me that's very conservative. I mean, I'm both at the same time, but who will say, well, you need to remember also to teach people how to be resilient, not just pick out the causes of the problems that people like them face in the world. because you can teach people the skills to overcome these problems, to address the problems, to move through them. And, like in school or wherever it is, you need to stop just talking about the problems. Like the field of sociology, we all have, every single sociology department everywhere in the world has a course called social problems. That's just like you take an intro class and then you take a social problems class, and every single one has a social inequality class. Okay. There's nothing about, whoa, let's look at how human beings overcome collectively, how we set up systems to empower individuals to take responsibility for overcoming the social problems that they experience. Like that's generally not talked about in sociology. That's in psychology.
Overcoming social problems course.
Yeah, overcoming the things that they address, right? So we leave that to like psychologists or something. But this is a very, very important sociological set of ideas. Right. But we get so lost in our social problem stuff that we forget to talk about that.
It's kind of making me think about how, like, for the longest time, just like with my psych background, some of the history I remember is just like how everything was so focused on the issue with the person rather than like the positive psychology. The flip around, it's like, well, let's focus on, now let's like think of the school of thought of like positive psychology rather than
that's right.
just like what are your problems. It's like
exactly
like the flip side.
Like, for example, this is cool that you say that. Because people think about, I'm going to go to therapy. Like when I went to therapy, as individual therapy, I didn't have any reason to go. I mean, the reason I went, I mean, everybody has a reason to go, but the reason I went is because I was in this graduate program with all these feminists, and I was kind of getting knocked around a little bit, by the feminists, and I didn't really, I'm like, okay, I'm definitely missing things. I don't know, but there were just things I didn't understand. I'm like, wait, why is that a problem? Like, why? I didn't get it, but and then the message would be, well, just keep working on it and keep exploring. You'll see some things. And I'm like, I couldn't see stuff. So I was thinking, this is, I'm not smart enough, to get this, right?
Right. Yeah.
I heard about
there's something wrong with me or something.
There's something wrong with me. You know what I mean? Yeah, the problem is you don't get it. See, this is like where minorities do this to majorities all the time. You'll figure it out. Don't ask me. You go figure it out on your own. But let me just tell you, you're screwed up, right?
Oh, minorities do it to majorities.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be flipped.
No, it's minorities. It's a power play. So anyway, this was me. I was in the majority. Anyway, so
that makes sense. I see now. Okay.
I heard about this guy who was running a therapy group. He was a psychologist, and he had this weekly group that dealing with men's issues, right? And I'm like, oh man! So I call him up. I call and I make an appointment. I'm like, I got to be in this group. This would be really cool to be in a group with 8 or 10 other men, and we can just talk about stuff. Being a man. This is back with Robert Bly and this whole men's movement back in the day. Eric Sells will remember all of this.
So that's what made that acceptable? Because I know like some men would be like, whoa, I'm averse to that. Like,
no, it was
talking.
No, because this is me exploring my consciousness, right? So I go into the session. Now I'm doing an individual 50-minute therapy session with this dude, right? I just sat down and he started asking me questions, and I'm talking, and at the end of 50 minutes, he said, well, what do you think? I'm like, yeah, it's cool. I said, he said, do you want to come back? And I say, yeah, come back. I've never talked about myself for 50 minutes. No one's ever asked me the questions you're asking me, It wasn't about being a man. It was just about my life,
Right.
And I wasn't struggling with anything really. There was nothing psychological, and, it's fine. It was just this sociological feminism stuff,
Right.
So then I said, well, what about this men's group? He's like, dude, I can't let you loose in that group till I know you better. Like we got to do a bunch of sessions. And I said, okay, cool. And that's how I started therapy. Just like that. It was positive therapy. You know, it was really nothing's wrong. I'm just going to explore. And then I just do journeys inside of my consciousness, inside of my mind, to better understand my history, why I thought the way I thought, what I thought about things that I had never thought about before because no one ever asked me questions, who I was, you know, all these things about me. And it was the most marvelous experience I ever had in my life, really.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. That's why I say everyone can benefit from therapy. It's positive stuff because some people don't need it because they have friends who just ask them lots and lots of questions, but I didn't have that. So,
right. Yeah. And it's, that stream of thought, like that, that version of therapy, kind of took you to discovery. You're like, instead of like, I don't know, like the Freud version is like, I think, like, I'm probably going to get some of this wrong, but just a lot of diagnosis, right? Like, just problems. And I'm like, bringing it back to the sociology, it's like, I wonder what led, like, the overcoming problems to be, like, kind of swept under the rug, like, for that to not be, like, discovered.
No, that's right. Okay, Eric Sell just made a cool comment. I think it's like self-growth. It's valuable if you've got the stones to look in a mirror without blinders, right? I don't know, Eric, you mean by stones, but yeah, it's really easy to have blinders. Like I kept pushing myself and I kept asking this guy, it's like, look, I sound really sane and normal, relatively speaking, but you got to push me, man. Let me know when you think that I'm missing things about not seeing stuff, whatever it is. You know, I really pushed him to push me.
Did he do that? He did that?
Yeah, he did. But you know, Lori pushed me further, right? Lori's just not. She just doesn't. You never say anything. Cojones, right? Cojones. Yeah. Still, if you, Lori, you never get one answer out with her, man. There's always going to be a follow up. You know that.
Yeah, she's a therapist herself.
Yeah,
You know, at least.
Yeah.
That's how I experienced her many times.
Yeah. Yeah, she's gonna like kick it out there. Hey, by the way, I was listening. Here's a political thing, and then I was listening to this Pete what's the guy's name? Hegseth.
I can look it up. Pete.
Yeah, it's the guy that Trump's
Pete Hegseth.
Hegseth, yeah, for the Department of Defense, DoD chair. Okay. And I was listening to various things about him, you know, listening to what his mother said about him and Hegseth. And there was...
What was that?
She wrote him this letter a few years ago that was just pretty scathing. It's kind of letter a parent doesn't want to write to their son. It just says, listen, you're really not a man that I feel really proud of, you know? But in any case, I thought, oh God, that would hurt to get that from my mom, especially if my mom was a pretty thoughtful person. But what I was thinking about with him, you know, I'm listening to how the Republicans lined up behind him and the Democrats are all, you know, critiquing him in such, you know, profound ways. And people are split and that kind of thing. And I think, well, what would the Democrats say if Obama had nominated this guy, a guy with the history that he has? You know, what would they say? Would they be behind him, or would they be just as outraged? Right. And what would all these Republicans that are just going along with this, what would they say if this was Obama's nominee? What would they say about this guy? You know, like divorces and drinking and philandering and, oh my God, just one thing after another, you know? And I think, well, what would that be if that was Obama? Right. It was Obama's guy. And what I say is, well, if you would still support it, then okay, good for you, then support him. But of course, people wouldn't. I mean, that's the nature of it, right? We line up behind our parties, just like our teams, our sports teams,
Right.
so when the players on our teams commit these really terrible moral indiscretions,
And you got their back.
whatever it is, we would tend to. That's our quarterback, man. I know he just did X, but like he just got caught drunk driving. But like
That's
he
our guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I was about to ask you. What does that tell you about people, but or like about the groups? But you kind
yeah.
of already said it, like just the conformity.
Well, it
Um,
tells us that we want to line up behind our teams, and the Muse just wrote like uh, there's always more to the story, right? And he's not. This guy is clearly talented at some level because he keeps finding himself in these situations where why is he being nominated at all? You know what I mean? And yeah, there's just always more to the story. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Rush Limbaugh talked about Michelle Obama for weeks because you could see her shoulders in her dress like that. It's like, come on, man.
Oh, they would critique her because she's showing skin.
Showing
Or,
skin. Yeah. Well, and it would be fine, but it was her because he had decided that was his enemy, right? Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So, like we don't. There's just more. There's more. There's always more. And to what C. Horace is saying, there's more to this guy. I don't know. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people that are nominated for all sorts of positions like this that are philanderers and have fathered children out of wedlock and all sorts of stuff, man, or have problems with alcohol. And one thing we just don't really know about it. I like what the one Republican senator said at the hearing yesterday. He looked around the room and said, "How many of us have come in and cast our vote while we've been drunk?" They went out to dinner and they had or lunch and they had a 2 or 3 martini lunch and they came back and they voted. You know what I mean?
Wow,
And
that's
I'm
a
like,
real
yeah,
statement.
how many of you? By the way, I'd like to know. Could you raise your hands? We'd like to know that.
Yeah, we actually need that until
Yeah, but I like how he just pushed back on people in that way. It's like, yeah, well, who are you?
right.
So
Like, at what point do we lose? Like, at what point or what does it take for us to be deemed as losing our value?
yeah, losing our values and what does that mean? And first off, look, I would never nominate that guy. He wouldn't rise to that level because once I knew these things about you, you just wouldn't ever get any kind of support from me. That's just how
Right.
it would be because that's me. That's where I put certain values, right?
Right. Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that I'm right and I'm better than somebody else. It just means that
Right.
that's where I put my value. Value.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris and Willie Brown is it's a really good one. It's like I asked that last year. I'm like, wait, hang on a second. Willie Brown's he's the guy. I mean, he's the playmaker out. He's the kingmaker out in California, right? So
Is Willie Brown a senator?
no, he's just a kingmaker, man. He's in the in the California legislature, and he's a guy that just sort of ran the Democratic Party. I don't know what his official roles were, but he's just a
Okay.
kingmaker, man, in the Bay Area
Got it.
and
Okay.
in Sacramento and so on, right? So
Kingmaker.
yeah, no, it's not Clinton with Lewinsky. That doesn't go there, no, because that's a different thing. She didn't have any kind of power. She didn't have any, but yeah, but that's the thing. So I don't know. That's right. It's hard, man. It's hard. It's hard to to listen to all of that. But the thing that stood out, and his mother said she wishes she had not written the letter after she sent it to him. She feels like she wishes she didn't write that letter. And I wonder, to her son, saying all these really, it's just mean, scathing things, man. Really, it's like you're just a terrible man, a human being. You are just, and I'm really ashamed of you, kind of thing, without, I don't think she used the shame word, but
how does this get revealed?
I don't know. That's a question I have, how to get revealed. But for me, it's just, oh God, to get that from my mom. That's, forget about having all my dirty laundry aired in public, right? And with all my kids and my stepkids and this one and that one and my girlfriends and the sexual assault allegations. It's like, oh God, that's terrible. But a letter from my mom,
Yeah.
that would be really terrible. So,
Man, and
the letter was written, I don't know, look it up online, but I think the letter was written, it was like 6 years ago or 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't written very long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know. But yeah. But I think his mother was particularly close to his second wife. And
texted the email that Pete Hegseth's mother sent him.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah. The difference between a successful man and a failure is if he would remove his pain and suffering from his past. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. That's actually kind of interesting. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's for 2018. The Muse said 2018. Anyway, that's kind of, that's pretty tough.
Man, and it just makes me think again, like, because we're talking about like demonization and othering and like all these terms, but then like if you have someone's mom doing that to like their own
Doing
son,
it to you, man.
then it's like,
Yeah.
how do we not like? It's like othering and demonization. It's like, dang, it feels like it's just that's so strong. If someone's mom is doing it to their own son, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then he got particularly critiqued because he's saying like, women shouldn't be in combat duties. They should not be in combat positions and active combat positions. And I don't know, man. Well, we're going to have a conversation with a couple military people about the DEI stuff in the military and all of that. But then he kind of changed his mind a little bit on it, and like over the past 30 days, a month or so. And then people yesterday were grilling like, what got you to change your mind? It's like, well, maybe I just changed my mind. Maybe I just thought about it in some new ways. I don't know. He didn't say that. I wish he would have just said, I don't know. I started thinking about what a silly idea that is. Like, yeah, sure, women should be in combat positions. Like, and people aren't allowed to change their mind. Like nothing, It's like, yeah. But then he didn't say that. So they probably told him, don't say I just changed my mind, because then you'll look like you're flippy floppy, which is what they used to say about, I don't know, they say flip flopped all the time. Who was that flip flopped? I forget who it was, but that was their thing. And like, oh God, yeah, like you can't just be honest.
Yeah, or else it looked like there's an accusation that you're influenced.
You're influenced, or you're not very smart. So that's why, even for me, I know that because I see someone said something about Cuban cigars coming back. When Lori and I were down in Mexico last March, we went over the border to just see people, talk to people. And I bought some Cuban cigars from my cousin. And when I was coming back over the border, because he couldn't bring Cuban cigars back, even though whenever I was since the 80s, I've been traveling into Latin America, always looking for Cuban cigars everywhere, because, you just bring back Cubanos, Anyway, these were in my backpack, and I'm running them through the scanner as they're going in, and it hit me right as the backpack was going through, like, oh, damn, am I allowed to bring Cubanos back, man? Like,
right?
I don't know. Well, they were always highly illegal. Yes, I no, I didn't share them, Jeff. I sent them to my cousin, and he didn't share them with his brothers, which was like I heard about that. But,
You don't share Cuban cigars.
anyway, that was my recent take on Cuban cigars. Like, oh shit, I'm gonna be in trouble here.
Wait, what's the end of the story? So you're like,
No, it
"Can I
turns out
do
it was
And then-
fine. They didn't say anything, so they must have known they were Cubanos. Because why else would you? Well, you wouldn't go to Mexico and buy Mexican cigars, man. Like you don't do that.
No.
No, I mean you know, like well, they don't have Mexican. I don't know that it's not a market there. Most of the cigars come in from South America or the DR or somewhere. But
Right.
yeah. But in any case, going back to women in combat, we will have a conversation about that. And later in the
Class,
semester,
or-
we're gonna do a week on military stuff, and we're gonna really talk about DEI in the military from people who are actually have been in combat with men and women, and people of all different backgrounds, and like people who train in the military. And it's like, what's all this DEI stuff? You know, because right now the message on is that Biden has really screwed up the military. It's like, listen, man, the military is like the slowest institution to change of any institution, man. Biden has not had enough time to screw up anything in the military of any significance. Just like when Trump is inaugurated, 2 weeks from now, things will happen in the economy or in the world, and Trump will be in office for 1 week and they'll already be blaming it on Trump. You know what I mean? The economy will take a hit some reason. I have no idea, you know, and it'll be, this is Trump's fault. Gas prices will go up or down or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
One day, you know, that's
Right.
all it. So anyway,
So, what do you?
so we'll talk about that. So people are saying this is all whatever is the problem in the military. I don't even know what the problem is, but you know, this is the thing. We just get on these narratives, you know, and it's like, stop with the narratives, man. God, you don't know what you're talking about. Like what the military's all screwed up. It's like, oh God. Yeah.
And then people do their research, but you know, maybe
Yeah.
it's like one source, or
Well, yeah, or it's
Or
just
like-
it just becomes a singular narrative, right? As I heard at that committee meeting, the the meeting yesterday of the committee, in the Senate, right? With just God, man, please. Yeah. So anyway, that's my thing. That gets kind of tiring. It's tiring to try to be the voice of reason between so many things, man. Yeah. Yeah. Our military services are throwaways, especially combat veterans. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say throwaways. I know enough people, the Muse, I will say that I know enough people in strategic positions who are in the military, who are, you know, planning operations and so on, who don't see it that way. And there's a way in which you could make that argument, you know, which is why, you know, we continue to have the military. We don't require people to register, and there are benefits of that. But at the same time, you know, you're going to tend to be much more overrepresented by people who are looking for something in their lives. Well, that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? So like poor people of enlisted people, it's more likely to be people at the lower end of the economic ladder.
right.
But then that's a good thing, because for so many people who I know who went in the military, it's like it gave them structure in their lives. It helped pull things together, and like what an awesome thing, man. You know,
Yeah.
you had a tough family life and you're really struggling, and you know, you get out of high school, or you don't make it out of high school, you pass your GED and you join the military, and you got immediate
Yeah.
structure right there.
That's like goes back to the thinking about resiliency again, in just like empowerment, and say, oh man, that empowered those people.
Yeah, but of course you are now going to potentially put your life at risk
Right.
to the benefit of the people like me who are not doing that, who need a certain amount of stability and whatever. So that's a problem. Okay, so it's like it's so many multiple things, And then if we had an all volunteer force, if it was a requirement, then you get all these people in the military. Combat veterans. Yeah, okay, combat veterans. Yeah, the muse. I see that. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, which is funny,
like
right?
combat veterans are throwaways.
Yeah, at some level. Yeah, we don't put nearly as much money into. We started to in these last two wars, the Gulf War and the Iraq War, the Afghan War, but there's too little invested in dealing with. Look, when you look at the really high suicide rate among vets and stuff, it just tells us that we're missing something. We're not doing something right.
Right.
Yeah, that we probably should rethink. Yeah.
It makes me think of how what the percentage of like homelessness are veterans too. Is that pretty high? Like homelessness and like
Yeah, totally.
veterans?
Yeah, totally. And so much of that is just, there's so many struggles, man. And a lot of times people who are struggling even before they go in, right? And then you serve, and then you have these experiences. I've had so many students who had been deployed and came back, and man, so many dozens that I just hear the stories. And California estimates 60% of homeless are vets. Like, oh man,
Wow.
damn, like, anyway, just stories, the real difficulties, man. It's so anyway, that's what the rest of us have to think about when we think about these kinds of things. Okay. Now. Okay.
So
I think, by the way, wait, hang on. Who is this? Stephen Kirkpatrick. The national service, like in Korea, the UAE, Israel, could teach a certain amount of respect and discipline. Yeah, I think, but the problem is the U.S. We're just such a big. It would require such a huge bureaucratic organizational structure to be able to do that. We're such a large country to make that happen.
what was that question proposing?
National service of some sort. It wouldn't have to be military, but it could be some social service that you have to do something for a year or two.
Oh, like okay.
But
Draft.
just hard. Yeah, it's hard. It's great. It's a good idea to think about, but the bureaucratic implications of that, like how you actually implement it and how costly it would be, and oh my God, that would be just such a tremendous amount of yeah. No, the muse, I hear you. Yeah, and I hear what you're saying about this comment. Yeah, and I agree with you. Yeah. Yeah, the U.S. military is exceptional at making soldiers, but terrible at making civilians. Yeah, well, yeah, it's that's the other side, right? So let's say all the people that go in, and I've met, and again, this is me, just because I talked to so many people of certain ages, and so at one point in time here, Elijah, I was the faculty advisor to one of the veteran groups on campus.
That's pretty cool.
And
what did that look like? Like
just talking to these guys, man, they were just struggling. They just didn't feel like the group that existed was really responding to their needs, which is of course what vets often say. And but if you think about this, that you're going to have a difficult time. If you go into the military because your life is just sort of a mess, right? Or it's just out of control and you feel out of control and you don't have structure and so on, right? And then you go in the military. And then you get out of the military. Where are you going to go? Back to your home? your hometown, your home where your life didn't have structure.
Right.
And and so then you're going to be really struggling. So a lot of the homelessness and the things that we see among vets, the struggles that vets have, are because there's such a large percentage of people who are joining the military to get away from the being lost and not having structure and assistance and people around them, right?
Right.
And then having nowhere to go when they get out. And they
And so
come back.
and if to really get something from the military, do you need to be, I mean, do you need to be there for longer than like 4 years, or you need to be there for like 8, right? Or like 8 or 12, or
Well,
to
maybe not. I
really,
mean, I would say the less structure you have in your life going in, the longer you probably want to be in, to build as much structure as you can by the
right,
time you.
right. And
Yeah.
even drinking culture is big, right? In the
Yeah.
military,
Well,
like alcoholism, or
you probably assume it is. Yeah.
I just hear stories, of
Yeah.
like people that I've known that have gone, and
Yeah.
it's like you go out drinking, and but I'm not sure how much
Yeah.
that is the case.
No, I'm sure it is. I think what the muse just said, that military, that it doesn't matter how trained you are, nothing compares a person for combat. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, man. That's everybody that I've ever had a conversation with that's able to really carefully articulate it. How, wow, just that first time and the second time and the third time. And there's a point at which it gets just kind of monotonous, like the combat, like you're going on these nightly missions here. And then, but it's when the major the flare ups and the fear is always there. And maybe it's not you, but it's the next platoon over or whatever, it's like, yeah, it's tough. It's a war. Why are we like that? Why is violence so, yeah.
Yeah,
God.
I was never like I've relate with that, just like not able to. I don't feel like there's a bone in my body, that. But then like my dad like talking about like when he talks about like cold places like where there's like no love, is like the only place where he like helped me understand like, oh, that's when it becomes um like the violence, and like that's different than like war. He's talking about like no love in a place where there's no love, and you like
Yeah.
go into certain areas where there is violence, because like that's the only place that there is love, like, or like gangs, or where there's like some version of love, and then along with that is like violence. It's different than war. Like it's a different version of war. But
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, totally. Yeah, this here, and there's I think that it's at long periods of boredom interspersed with moments of terror. Yeah, that's kind of it right there. Huh. Yeah, man. All right, listen. We're at 6:38. Why don't we head out? Tomorrow, I think it's going to be an interesting class. We're going to do something I haven't done before.
really,
Yeah. So it'll be good. Well,
cool.
I mean, it's something kind of a thing that we've talked about a little bit, but I think it'll be a really good class. Yeah. I'm going to look at these. I recruited people last class, so,
Okay.
or
I'll be
yesterday's.
watching that.
Yeah, I think it'll be
excited.
good. I think it'll be cool. Be interesting. We're going to talk about with people, children of mixed race parents, and people who are in mixed race relationships, students in the class. And I'm going to have the students asking the children whose parents are mixed race, right? Or, mixed marriage. I'm going to have the students asking the children questions. Like,
The students that are in a relationship
yeah,
with,
yeah, yeah.
interracial,
Yeah,
they're in an
interracial
interracial
relationship.
relationship,
Yeah.
are going to be talking to children of parents from an interracial relationship.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that'll be really cool, right? It's like,
Yeah, I'm like, well, I relate. Like, I want to know what happens. Like, yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah, it's pretty
cool.
cool. That'll be really cool. I think it's all right. Wait, Jeff, did you do a dad joke yet? Did you do that? Wait, dad joke here. All right, here I was in a taxi today. Oh my. Okay, that's really bad. That's really bad. It's just like, that's actually, Lori would say that's the dumbest dad joke she's ever heard. And she would say it's not even a joke. I mean, it's like, what's the joke?
That's so. I think it was yesterday or today, because I think I did something similar to a dad joke or whatever, and then she was something about like living in a household with a man that loves dad jokes. That's funny.
God, I'm so glad I don't have kids. They would be so annoyed at my stupid jokes. Oh my God. They would get to a certain age, like they'd get to your age and they would appreciate it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but when they're
That's,
like 12, 13, dad,
yeah.
stop, please. Yeah.
Wait, the truth about war and combat. Yeah, from Kelsey Sharon. Yeah, that'd be cool. Been on a number of podcasts. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it'll be really interesting. I've got students who've been there. You know. Okay, listen.
That's cool.
Dad, you're so cool. All right, see ya, everybody. Be well. Thanks.